Welcome back to day one of the Building Stronger Relationships workshop. So, today we looked at negative emotions and problems and how to identify and perhaps deal with them. So, the example today was depression, but it works very similar with other negative emotions because they're all related, as we learned yesterday. So the triad of what can lead to these negative emotions or what can be used to identify them is physiology, posture, and language. So things will change. If you focus on a negative emotion, you might notice your tone, voice changes, breathing changes, you might shake your head, posture changes. Every emotion represents telling yourself a message silently. So it's kind of a natural reinforcement of those emotions. When you feel them, you say it to yourself, which reinforces the emotion, which reinforces the thought, and it's a vicious cycle. And interfering with these negative emotions can sometimes induce anger, and that's the thing. It's like if somebody tries to mess with it, then you might lash out because people get protective of their negative emotions because they actually fulfill needs, some of the basic human needs. Not in a productive way, but they do fulfill them. So this can result in anger at loved ones who may be trying to help. But the fact that we can rapidly go back and forth between these emotions also shows that we have the power to rapidly shift for the better as well. And to overcome habits of depression and negative emotions, we need a strong emotional state to meet the needs while counteracting depression or anger, impulsiveness, etc. To create long-lasting relationships, on the other side of the medallion, we need to understand the other person's world. If you're trying to help someone with one of these problems, you need to understand where they're coming from, where the emotions come from, and we can break the pattern or we can challenge it with surprising language or humor. My personal favorite. And then we need to find leverage. Like, what is it? What do they care about, and what are they getting out of this emotion that we can possibly find in other ways? Then the common one, redefine the problem, which also another way of saying, to paraphrase it, to show that we understand where the person's coming from. And finally, we want to relate after we create alternatives and try and condition new behaviors, we can relate to a higher purpose. And that's straight out of Dale Carnegie, the appeal to the higher motive action. And when we have a higher purpose, then what was it? Radical swings are not necessary, right? We don't need to be going back and forth between sadness and sensitivity to anger and lashing out. Once you have a higher purpose, you don't need to fulfill your needs in those ways. We need to replace them with quality problems like finding new profession, working on interpersonal relationships, asking for help, or confronting people about problems such as these. And people use they develop these safe problems to protect against the fear. If you pick a problem that's big enough, then it protects against the fear that failure will result in not being loved, which is, again, one of the fundamental needs of humanity. Quality of life is directly proportional to the amount of certainty that someone can tolerate, which must say why quantum physicists have such a high quality of life with all that uncertainty. Uh, you can meet the need for certainty in positive, neutral, or negative ways. You can take on a new challenge. You can try and better yourself, or you can resort to addictions and drugs and other things of that sort. Now, if everything was too certain, it would get very boring. So we do have a need for uncertainty, but people only really want the surprises they want. And surprises they don't want can be labeled as problems. Uh, Problems, hesitations, fears are what give uncertainty, the uncertainty of success. And we have a need for significance. And we need to be special, to be needed, to feel important. And ideally, you can get it by achievement, you can get it by challenge, material. Some people buy things. Even religion can provide that. Personally, I think humor, again, is a very high quality way. And the easiest way to be significant is to be violent. And that's unfortunate. If you go hold a gun to somebody's head, you're instantly significant in their life. But not many people would say that that's particularly laudable. Actions or beliefs, every time they can meet 3 or more of our needs, they're very likely to become an addiction. So I found that quite illuminating. And it makes a lot of sense. These negative ideas, like for myself, it was the big problem. Talk about the environment. It can't be solved, so it's like that's a perfect excuse for why the individual doesn't get anything done. There's this big problem in the way. But that requires, self-introspection and truth, because if you follow that logic, you say, well, there's other people that have had way more problems and they've still succeeded. So you have to stare yourself in the face, and so people tend not to confront that and just rationalize it away. As we said before, having a problem meets the need for significance and connection. Because most people become jealous of success, but they'll sympathize with a big problem. So it's kind of a paradox. The need for significance almost directly contradicts the need to feel connected and loved. To be more significant, you have to be more unique, and to be more connected, you have to be more similar. So I personally can resonate with that one a lot. Always taken very much pride in being different, and being connected has definitely suffered as a result. But no regrets. We want to meet these needs: growth, happiness, conditioning, contribution, being connected, loved. We want to meet them in sustainable and attainable ways. And the final human needs are growth and contribution. So obviously, if we don't grow, we die. And if we don't contribute beyond ourselves, we'll never experience any lasting fulfillment. So one example, how depression meets the needs for certainty, significance, and love. Because you get love out of other people from being depressed. You got your problems, so it instantly is a definition and a sense of significance. And there's a certainty. If you know you're going to be depressed, it fulfills that need. So it can become an addiction in and of itself, even though it's not particularly desirable emotion. It can meet needs in an unproductive way, and therefore become a condition. We have to humiliate ourselves before we revert to these selfish states. We have to see it coming and be able to snap out of it effectively. That's only then can we grow and contribute and get out of the crazy 8 cycle, as they say. On one side, you got sensitivity and sadness, or you can't be sad and sensitive for too long, or else people get sick of it. So you revert, and then you go to anger to get and defiance, and it just goes back and forth between the two sides without ever breaking out. Negative emotions are low quality ways to meet our needs, but we will never find lasting fulfillment. So I found that quite an illuminating day, and thank you for joining.